Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoding Dyslexia Idaho's Wednesday webinars. I'm Robin, and tonight we have What to Teach and When to Teach It with Karen Kilpatrick Snell. Thank you, Karen, for being with us. I'll just do a quick introduction. Karen has nearly 20 years of experience as a special education teacher, general education classroom teacher, and now as a specialist in private education practice. She received her undergrad in speech communication and her teaching certificate from Florida, and her master's degree in special ed from the University of South Florida. She is a proud mother of two wonderful sons who happen to be dyslexic. And Karen wanted to do more for this misunderstood and often forgotten student, the dyslexic. In 2014, she founded the Cupola Learning Center in Boise, Idaho. It focuses on remediating students with learning differences such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, as well as advocating for students with learning disabilities in our public and private schools. Karen continues to be a passionate learner herself, continue to take advantage of many different training opportunities. She had extensive training in Orton Gillingham, including the Ames Institute for Learning and Research, the Wilson Reading Program, Linda Mood Bell, Letters, Barton. I mean, I think you're pretty much the most trained person that joins us in offering webinars. So the list goes on. She's got a structured literacy classroom teaching certificate from the Center of Effective Reading Instruction. She's certified with this the Academy of Orton Gillingham Practitioners. And anyhow, Karen, thank you for being with us. She enjoys working with families and advocating for students in our public schools. We're excited to have you. Thank you for coming.
Did I write all that? Because that was awesome. I'm awesome.
You are. You are awesome.
So terrific. Thank you so much. I thank you for the introduction. It was wonderful. I'm going to share my screen.
Great. Also, real quickly, you please feel free to post your comments in the chat, your questions in the chat as Karen goes, and we may stop throughout and interrupt to take questions or save them to the end. We'll see how it flows.
Hey, guess what? So when I'm sharing my screen like this on Zoom, we could see everybody and this, but I can't see my mouse to move it. Does that make sense?
Gosh, you're talking to the technically challenged girl, but it does make sense. How to fix that, I don't know.
Okay, Karen, go to view and change the view. The view is in the upper.
Oh, it says view options.
Yeah, it's in the upper right.
Right.
And see if you can get the
so view in Keynote or view in Zoom? See what I'm saying? I could hide my tab bar, view, but I don't know. I'm so sorry, you guys. Well, all right, we'll just go with it. I'll just minimize our pictures and I'll do what I do with my students. I'm just gonna move everything out of the way and we'll start. So this is actually better because I can't see anybody, so it makes me feel so much better. I'm more comfortable. We're going to begin. A couple of little housekeeping we'll start with this one. If you notice on the side, there's that QR code over here, and the QR code is, now we do them all over the place. There's not even in a restaurant, we don't have menus anymore. They just give us the QR code. So what you do is you just take a picture, hold up your camera on your phone up to the QR code, and that code will take you to more information that's on that slide. So for example, on this slide, this QR code will take you to my website for Cupola Learning Center. Another thing I was hoping that we could do is in the chat box, if you could put in, if you're a SPED teacher, a gen ed teacher, whether or not you're a private practitioner, a parent, love parents, and what grade you're interested in and where you're at in Idaho. Because we're all over. Idaho is so huge and we have such a area that it would be nice to know where everybody is coming from. And then in a little bit, maybe Kim can share that information with us. So there we go. So for today, the objectives that I would like to talk about is how to teach. And when I talk about how to teach, I'm talking about the structured literacy method and an Orton Gillingham based multisensory method. So it's how we're delivering our instruction. And with our students, with our population who are dyslexic, actually it's the gold standard for just teaching all learners, is we're gonna be using that multisensory piece. It's so super important. When to teach it, we're going to be talking about Aries phases of word recognition. And I'd love to use Aries phases of word recognition because it provides that framework, that developmental framework of looking at the students that I receive, where they're at, what they're ready for, what's the next step. Because what we don't want to create, our kids come to us with foundational holes. We don't want to create more holes. So it's really important to understand Aries phases of word recognition so we could get our students and fill in those holes. Finally, what to teach. I'm a huge proponent of baseline assessments and progress monitoring. So data informs instruction. I do not know what to teach a student unless I know where they're at and what skills that they're missing. So I could start there. And then we always progress monitor at Cupola Learning Center. We do it, SPED teachers do it all the time in their resource rooms as well, because that tells us, is our instruction being effective? And if it's not, then we need to change our instruction. We need to either change the modality, we need to change what we're teaching, we need to teach more. It just kind of depends on what we're looking at, but we won't know if it's effective or not unless we're progress monitoring. I never get a student, teach them for 6 months and then check and see, oh, is he learning anything? Because that's just a waste of 6 months. Another thing we're going to be talking about that I'm a huge proponent for is teaching those strategies for decoding words. We're going to be using we're going to be doing together some activities that are all multi-sensory methods. And we're also going to be teaching syllable types and syllable division. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the structured literacy method. Structured literacy method provides kind of like an overall of how I'm going to be teaching and what I'm going to be teaching. So the first thing in every session that we do, we're going to we're going to instruct on phonology, and that's the study of sound and spoken words. And when I say we're going to instruct on it, remember the first thing I'm doing is I've already got that baseline assessment. So I already know where my student is. And so our structured literacy method is tailored to that individual student. Each lesson, we're going to be instructing on the sound symbol orthography, how to map those sounds, those phonemes to the grapheme. We're going to always be in every lesson, syllable, the syllable knowledge of syllabication. I love that word, syllabication. I love being smart when I say syllabication. So we have to know, our students have to know what types of syllables there are, there's 6, and how to divide those syllables up. So that we could read those longer words, the big words that my students talk about. We're also going to be instructing on morphology, which is that study of base words and affixes, the prefixes and the suffixes. And then we do instruct on syntax and semantics, but I'm not going to be talking about that in this webinar. So just to let you know that my objectives that I have are huge compared to the time frame. So if I go over something too fast, or if you need more information, just let me know. But it's really hard to dig deep for an hour webinar. With the structured literacy method, we must explicit instruction. We must teach explicitly. Our students are already struggling. They're not going to come up because of their underlying cognitive processes that go along with a student with a learning disability, with dyslexia, is we have to explicitly explain to them what we're doing. We're going to directly model a skill, and while we're verbalizing our thought process. And then we're going to provide plenty of guided practice with that teacher feedback, right? And that independent practice. And finally, our structured literacy method has to be systematic and sequential. So we're going to teach in a logical order. Our students are going to learn and master the easier skills before we move them on to the more complex skills. And the goal is to make sure that the students have the knowledge that they need to learn that new skill. So our students, they're already struggling. They already feel lost and that they're failures. So we, in our center, we don't teach a new skill until we know that they're set up for it, that there's that support there, that they're going to be successful. And there's the Reading Rockets QR code. I love Reading Rockets. I love understood.org. It'll give you some more information on what structured literacy method is and where you can get some training in structured literacy if you would like to use it in your classroom or in your practice. Another thing that I talked about was how we teach it is with this multisensory method. So that's that Orton Gillingham. It's a must do. Way we do, so we have a lot of strategies, right? But the ones that I really like that we use during our sessions is that we're going to stretch out to hear those phonemes. So for example, if I have a student that's working on a consonant blend, short, closed syllable word like, I don't know, branch, we're going to go branch so that they can have that opportunity to really hear the individual sounds. Because remember, our dyslexics, they might not hear, they can't hear those individual sounds. We really have to work hard on teaching them to listen for those individual sounds. Then we're going to do our finger sound mapping. B, n, ch, branch. And then we're going to pull down either letter tiles, if we're at the method where we're mapping that graphing to the sound, or we're going to be pulling down just the chips, the colored chips. And then we're going to slowly tap out. Make sure we always double check. It gives that student that opportunity to double check their work and make their own correction, right? Because it's very important to let them have that time to make their own, to hear the difference, see the difference, and then say, oh wait, that's not what I wanted, and to fix that difference, because that's what learning is. So we have to give them that time to do that. And then after we've double checked by tapping and saying the letters and the sounds, then we're going to blend it together to make a word. So that's the basis of the multisensory method that we use when we're talking about doing our sessions. So everybody has seen this. It's called the Fab Five. Nowadays, they've updated it to the Super Six. And the Super Six adds oral language. And adding that oral language is from birth, where we start talking at birth. And we talk in baby talk, which is super interesting to me because it's like talking in syllables. Mommy wants to go to the playground. So it's this, we're talking like that as they're growing up. And so they're hearing that oral language. That oral language provides the vocabulary, basis for vocabulary and prior experience. It's super important. But for right now, we're just going to be talking about the Fab Five. So when you look at the Fab Five, one of the most important things, well, they're all important because they support each other, right? Is that phonemic awareness and that phonics. Because if we don't have phonemic awareness or phonics, then it's going to be, we're not going to know what every fifth word is in a paragraph if we don't have that phonics decoding skills, and then we won't have comprehension. Or if we don't have that vocabulary, that knowledge of what a word means when we're sounding out the word, then we might we might lose confidence. Did I sound that out right? Or if we do sound it out right, we decode the word, but we don't know what it is, then we're going to lose on our comprehension. For fluency, so fluency is super important. When we're talking about fluency here, we're not talking about that magic gold standard number that they could read 152 words a minute in 4th grade or whatever it is. So a lot of remediated dyslexics, they don't ever reach that magic number. And they don't need to, because what fluency actually means, it's got 3 components. It's automaticity, where they've gotten to the point where they've been remediated so they could read a word without having to sound it out. It's accuracy, where they can accurately sound out the word. And then it's that prosody and that expression. So when they're reading, are they pausing at commas? Are they ending, if it's a question mark at the end of a sentence for punctuation, are they raising their voice? Are they reading with expression? And so all of these components together help support or are necessary for comprehension. So when we're talking about this last slide that we talked about where we had phonemic awareness, is I love to talk about and show everybody the Scarborough Reading Rope. So this is famous. And when we're talking about students with dyslexia, is we're focusing here on, it's highlighted in red, it's the word recognition area. And then underneath the word recognition area, there's subskills: phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. And that sight recognition, again, is not talking about Fry's sight words or Dolch words. It's talking about being able to read a word automatically without having to sound it out. So for our students who are dyslexic, they have their only challenge is in this word recognition area. The language comprehension area, they have that in spades. I can't tell you, my 5-year-old, my oldest son, who is much older now, but when he was 5 and 6 and 7, his vocabulary was better and higher than my husband and I. We don't know where he got it, but he had such fabulous vocabulary. And that background knowledge and that verbal reasoning is dyslexic students, they've got that. And if they don't, they're easy to pick that up by or listening to a book on tape. If they're doing some ear reading, they can pick up that vocabulary. So we're really talking about this word recognition area. And what I like about the Scarborough Rope is that we take these sub skills and we weave them together through instruction and remediation and repetition and practice, 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 until those individual strings are woven together into this tight rope. And then when we get that, we have a skilled reader. So the first thing I want to talk about under word recognition is phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is so super important. This is a couple of quotes from Dr. David Kilpatrick. He's not a relative of mine, unfortunately. But phonemic awareness is the most common source of reading difficulty is poor phonemic awareness. And early training of phonological awareness in kindergarten and first grade prevents many reading difficulties from happening. So remember, when we talk about what to teach and when to teach it, this phonemic awareness has to be taught starting in pre-K, really, and in kindergarten and first grade, so that they can build this strong phonemic awareness string and that subskill so that they become fluent readers later on. Dr. Louisa Moats is her quote, I love, one of the most important jobs for a teacher of reading or students with reading problems, I made that red, she didn't, is to foster an awareness of phonemes, that speech sound, in words, and to help children acquire the ability to articulate, compare, segment, and blend those phonemes. So when she's talking about compare, segment, and blend, and manipulate those phonemes, that's a really high phonemic awareness complex skill. And we're gonna look at the complexity model here of phonemic awareness. So for phonological awareness, it goes, I wish I could use my mouse to cursor to like show you guys. So phonological awareness is all of these skills, right? And so starting from words into a syllable. So remember in pre-K and in kindergarten, we might have our kids clap out. I don't particularly like clapping, we do tapping, banana. Oh, that's a 3-syllable word. Alligator, alligator. Oh, that's 4 syllables. Whether or not they can rhyme, come up with a rhyme or identify a rhyme, and that alliteration, that initial and the final sound for sorts. Now remember, this is all sound. So phonological awareness and phonemic awareness is like a phone, like a telephone. I can't see the person I'm talking to, but I can hear them. So this phonological awareness has nothing to do with actual letters. It is all sounds. Then the phonemic awareness starts with the onset and rhyme segmentation, and the skills get more complex as they move up the ladder. And you'll notice where it says foundational critical to early literacy success, is blending those sounds into words, right? That's decoding. We're gonna look at a word and we're gonna go frog. And then also segmenting words into sounds. So or looking at a word og. Oh, I want to spell that. Good. That's that spelling. We don't want to add that spelling, but those two things, segmenting words into sounds, helps us later with our encoding, with our spelling. And finally, the hardest thing to do, the most complex skill, is deleting and manipulating these phonemes. This latter, and our students being strong in all of these skills, is super important for them to be a skilled reader. They need to have phonemic and phonological awareness. So here, this is when we get a student at the center. What we do is it doesn't matter who they are and how old they are, we always assess them on their phonological awareness and what they know. And we use the PAST, the Phonological Awareness Screening Test. There's the QR code right there. That'll take you to the PAST website. And on the website, they've got, it's free. So you could download the forms to give the assessments. They teach you how to score it. It's just a super, super resource, and it's all free. The PAST is research-based. It provides 4 separate forms for progress monitoring. So remember, that progress monitoring piece is so important, so that we know we're on the right track with our students. If we're not, then we need to kind of change our intervention. It is all students K through 3 have to be assessed on their phonological awareness, and any struggling student for 4th grade and higher, because that struggling student, I guarantee you, is going to have some form of PA challenge. And so we need to figure out where that is. So if we give them the PAST, we could figure out what sub-skill that they're having that hard time on, and then we can do some intervention. So once, this is kind of getting into the what to teach, and is once we have our results from the assessment, then we use the Heggerty Phonemic Awareness Curriculum, and there's your QR code. So make sure to take a picture of it. I highly recommend Heggerty. The curriculum is research-based. It comes with pre, progress, and post-tests. It provides that detailed lesson plan for teachers or parents who aren't quite sure what to do. It's very detailed. It aligns itself with that structured literacy method. It's systematic in its scope and sequence, and it's explicit modeling, where students, lots of repetition and a lot of feedback. So you say something, then they work on that skill, and you're giving them feedback. It provides all of that. So another thing that we use to work on phonemic awareness is the L-Conan boxes. So this is a tried and true method. It's quite old, but it works, and I love it, and I insist on it. So what it does is it helps build that phonological awareness of segmenting the words and sounds, and it's attaching these chips to it, right? So it gives that extra layer of support for our students, that visual piece that they can see, because notice it's a chip, a color chip, and not a letter, because we're still working on that phonemic awareness. It teaches the students how to count the numbers of phonemes in a word. We use this to help students teach how many words are in a sentence. It helps the students better understand that alphabetic principle, even though there's not letters on it. It's that foundation that they need for that alphabetic principle. So for example, in an L-Conan box, I might say frog. So we're going to use our method, our OG method. We're going to go frog, g. And then we're going to move the tiles, the chips, the colored chips, while we are again saying the sound. G. And then we're going to double check our word. G. And then we're going to blend. Frog. Oh, frog. So once again, this is just to remind you of that multisensory method. It's everything here is exactly what I just did. It's so super important, that OG for our students with dyslexia. It's really just kind of the gold standard of how to teach reading, personally, I believe. So we're going to go back to our strand, and we're done with our phonological awareness, and we're moving into decoding. So now we're going to be teaching that decoding skill. And remember, decoding is that alphabetic principle, that spelling sound correspondence where we're going to match the sound to the grapheme, right? Oh, that's my dog. Sorry. I should have said Robin has 8 kids and I have 1 Belgian Malinois. So for example, so when we're talking about decoding, I talked to you a little bit about that Aries phases of word recognition. So I've done our baseline assessments. We use like the core phonics just to kind of figure out what type of, where they're at in their reading, what they're missing. And then we also apply this framework, the Aries phases of word recognition. And it helps us kind of determine where, not only where a student is, but what they need prior to moving on to the next phase. But that said, the phases can overlap. So we create whole group lessons by determining where they're at in the Aries phrases, and we also create small group and one-on-one lessons. So the pre-alphabetical phrase, alphabetic phrase is that early phrase where you're driving down the road and they see the arches and they're like McDonald's, or the circle, the red circle, Target. And so they're using these pictures to guess. And we want to move them through developmentally at an appropriate rate. But this phase, we want to move them through in early kindergarten. That's an early kindergarten. And when we're instructing students in this phase, we're teaching them phonological awareness, and then we're moving them in through that grapheme letter correspondence. Here's the QR code. So for this, I'll show this to you. It's pretty cool. It's the Florida Center for Reading Research. And this is the instructional focus that I talked about a little bit on the last slide. It goes into a little bit more detail with teaching rhyme and sentence segmentation, alliteration. And if you, oh, that's right, that link didn't work. So let's see. Oops. Sorry, hang on. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. Stop share. Hi, let me figure out what's happening with that. I hope my links work because I want to be able to do them. Let's see. All right, here we go. Thank you. So Florida Center for Reading Research is this fabulous organization. It's out of UF, I think. And what they have done is a tremendous amount of research on struggling readers, on dyslexia. As a matter of fact, we used to live in Florida and my family participated in a genetic testing through this Florida Research Center just because we had two dyslexic kids. So it was kind of fun that we got to, participate in that. So on this website, you can find all the activities that you need. And the reason why I really love this website, especially when I was a classroom teacher, was coming up with those individual or small group activities to support exactly where that group or that student was not always easy. And it wasn't really in our curriculum, right, that the district says we need to teach from. And so knowing that my student needs to have, work on rhyming because they can't rhyme, then what they do is they've got all the material for you. They have the lesson for you, they tell you the objectives, and they tell you the material. This wasn't a good one because it's a little labor intensive because you have to do all of these. So let's go back. Let's see if we can find a different one. Let's see if this one is. So I'd like where it just has this phonological awareness. So it has the activity for you. And what we used to do is either I'd have my parent volunteers come in and help me, build these activities, or our special education department, our SPED department would get together on a Thursday after school, order some pizza, and we just bang out a bunch of activities that we would all share within our pod. All right. Let's see if I did this right. I did it. Oh, wait. New share. Yay. All right. Phew. Okay, so that's just teaching. This is a really great resource for you as you're moving along in these. Anything that you need, Florida Center for Reading Research is going to have it either for phonological awareness or for teaching decoding. The next phase is that word recognition. The students is the full alphabetic phase. They've got the letter sound correspondence. They've got their phonemic awareness down. Remember that phonemic awareness ladder. They're decoding from left to right, and they're using decoding strategies for unfamiliar words. So when it talks about this being developed in kindergarten and early first grade, when we're talking about decoding strategies to read unfamiliar words, we're not talking about vowel-teen words. And we're not talking about 3-syllable words. We're just talking about those words that they're going to be seeing, that's going to be in your curriculum for the kindergarten and early first grade. The instructional focus then is we want to move our students from, we want to help them at the final top is that segmenting and blending of the phonemes, that they're actually looking at every grapheme individually, because a lot of times to move them into this phase, we have to really get them out of looking at the first couple of letters and then guessing the rest of the word. And that goes on a long time if we let that go, like 3rd and 4th grade. And then it's also, we're giving them repeated exposure to words and connected text, those decodable texts that they can read. So in here, this is the final one, the consolidated phase. There's, oh, it just says scan me, but if you can, you could scan that QR code. It'll give you more information about Erie's phases of word recognition. It'll let you know why it's important, how we use it, that type of thing. And so in this consolidated phase, the instructional focus is we're providing a plethora of opportunity for reading connected text. We're definitely teaching those syllable types and the syllable rules. So we're getting them from, if they can divide up a 2-syllable word, then we're moving up to a 3-syllable word. And we're going to continue that scaffolding and that supporting, because once they have this, then they're going to be moving into content reading, right? They're going to be moving out of our 3rd grade, 2nd, 3rd grade, and then they're going to have to learn, they're reading to learn, and they're reading content words, science words, and history words that they haven't seen before. And so we're continuing our scaffolding and supporting them and providing them that remediation that they need to apply what they know to these new content words. Again, multi-sensory method. I guess I just love this slide because it's in here again. It's super important. So we make sure that you're doing, when you're instructing and you're remediating, that you're always using that multi-sensory method. So here's a few activities for decoding. Word chains. I love, love, love word chains. They're an excellent activity. It's a great warm up in the morning. You could put it up on your smartboard, or you could do some word work activity on the side, you know, in the small group, a word work activity, you can do word chains there. The individual chains that you're going to use are chosen based on your students' needs. So it would be really great if there was just a book of word chains, right? And you can find a lot of word chains already built for you, the words that are built for you, but you're going to want to make sure that you have assessed your student and you're using the word chains that they need for that remediation, because we don't want to go too high and get them frustrated, and we don't want to waste time having them use a word chain for a CBC word when they've got CBC words down. One of the rules for using a word chain is that we only change one sound at a time. And the student moves from the decoding to the encoding kind of back and forth during the word chain activity. And I thought we could try and do a word chain. Let's see if I could figure it out. Should have a link here, but I don't know where it's at. Ah, I found it. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can bring you guys with me. You share. All right, so this is this link is to the UF virtual teaching hub, University of Florida Teaching Hub. It's different from the last resource, the Florida Center for Reading Research. And in this teaching hub is phenomenal. It's all free. And what you can do is you can work on a word chain using a word map. So let me get my notes out. So for a word chain, when I talk about what we're doing is I'll build the word first, or I'll ask the student to build it. I'll say, can you build the word swam? And then they're going to be doing their multisensory method, swam, and then they're going to build the word swam. And this happens at the very first of the word chain. So they're building the first word in the chain, swam, right? And then from there, I'm going to ask them to change swam to swag. So they have to go through, what's that different sound? Swag. And they're having to compare swam to swag to hear what's different. I'm gonna move it down, and then they're gonna build this word, swag. And can you change swag to swam? And they're going through. Oh, I might have already done that. Let's change it back. We'll change it back to swam. Can you change swam to slam? Slam. Oh, it's this letter. It's this sound, right? And we don't talk about letters. We always talk about sounds. Slam. Double check. Can you change slam to glam? What? Glam? And then I always go, okay, let's do this. Glam. Oh, okay. Oh, it's the first letter. It's the first sound. Glam. Like that. And so that's them spelling. And then we want to switch it right to them decoding. So then I take over and I'm going to just switch it out kind of fast. Can you read this word? And they're going to read clam. Can you read this word? What's this word? And they're going to read clap. And so we're taking that opportunity where they start the word chain, they're encoding, they're spelling, they're comparing two words to see which sound is different, and then they're manipulating it to make the new word. They're manipulating one phoneme to make a new word. Well, we go back to the presentation. Oh, I did it even better this time. Oh, you guys aren't with me. Okay, so we're back. So once again, that's called a word chain activity. They're so super effective. I just learned about them a couple of years ago, and I was embarrassed that I didn't know about them because we've implemented it in the center at Kupalo, and it just is that extra piece that I think we were missing to really get these students to be able to manipulate and change out sounds, and it really helps them hear those individual sounds. So another strategy that I love is back to the Elkonin boxes, but this is a double Elkonin box because it provides that bridge from the sounds, just that phonemic awareness, to that mapping of the graphing to the sound. So for example, I might have a student build frog. So we do our multisensory method, frog, and they're gonna pull down their sounds, frog. And then they're gonna continue with this double Elkonin box, and they're gonna put the graphing there. I have found they love this. My students just love this. It's called a double Elkonin box. And so you can, I think it's in our resource page, you'll be able to find it. If not, it's easy peasy to make. They're all over the place, but you will be able to get it at the Florida Center for Reading Research. They have Elkonin boxes on that website. So I wonder how I'm doing. Okay, so a big, huge portion of teaching decoding is obviously syllables and syllabication. And so for my kids call this, my students call this big words. So when we're teaching big words, we're going to make sure that our student, well, even before big words, with little words as well, is that our students have to know those 6 syllable types. And why are knowing the 6 syllable types important is because it tells us what that vowel says. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. Knowing what the vowel says takes that guessing out of decoding. And so when we're taking guessing out of decoding a word, we're helping with our automaticity, with our fluency. And then syllabication is that direct instruction on how we divide up a multi-syllable word, right? Where one syllable ends and where the next one begins. So because it's so important, those syllables are so important because it tells us what the vowel says. But if we have a multi-syllable word, we're not sure where do we end, where do we start? And so we directly instruct using, like we talked about in the structured literacy method, is we do direct instruction on how to divide up a multi-syllable word. So for syllables, we always teach what is a syllable. It's a part of a word. It's either a word or part of a word. We teach syllables and syllabication to provide students with a strategy to decode those small and big words. It provides that ability for them to chunk larger words into manageable pieces. So a lot of our students are struggling readers is they'll look at the first part of this long word and they'll guess, or they'll just look at that big long word and go, can't do it. And so what we're doing is we're supporting them by we're helping them learn how to chunk a big word down into smaller syllables. And then they're just reading syllable, 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 and then they're going to blend them together. That's blurry. I'm sorry, everybody. So these are the 6 syllable types: closed, open, silent E, vowel team, R control, and consonant LE. And when we're looking at the closed syllable or the open syllable, that's what we're talking about, is knowing what that vowel says. So I'll do an easy example for like the word dog. If I didn't know that in a closed syllable that O has to say ah, it has no other choice. It's closed. It has to say ah. Some of my students, when we first get them, might go d-o-g, dog. And then they know, because they've been taught at school, that the O can say 3 sounds, right? It could say ah, o, and And so they'll try the other sounds. Dog. Oh, dog. Oh, it's dog. Well, right there, that's impeding their automaticity and their fluency, right? If they have to do that for every single word, then they're not going to have that comprehension. And so we directly instruct them on all of the 6 syllable types. There are some programs that have 7 syllable types. That 7th syllable type is called a diphthong. It's the oys, and oi as in toy. And I just put that, like most of everybody else, puts them in with the vowel teams because they're vowel teams. We don't need to like weigh our students down with a diphthong syllable type. The hardest one I would say to teach is the vowel team, because our vowel teams can say multiple sounds. For example, the EA vowel team says, let's see, meat, I eat, bread, and steak. So it says E for eat, it says for bread, and A for steak. And so that's challenging, and that's where we have a lot of repetition, a lot of moving those tiles around and building and blending, and where we should get those vowel teams down. And then another thing that's kind of hard is that silent E. It's so introduced so early that a lot of my students, whenever they're spelling anything and they hear that long vowel sound, they throw an E on the end of the word. If you know what I'm talking about, they'll throw that E on the end of the word because they know, oh, a silent E, that makes the vowel say its name. And so there's actually 6 reasons why we have a silent E on the end, and we just directly instruct our students on those 6 reasons. And then R control is hard because we got R and or, right? But down the middle we have and and they're all 3 spelled differently. And there's really no rule to it, except for usually if we hear at the end of a word, it's going to be ER. This is just a little bit more about the 6 syllable types. It talks about the closed and the open. It gives you examples of it. But the interesting thing is, and I believe I got this off of UF, the teaching hub, is that our closed and open syllables make up 75% of our English words. So the first thing we're going to teach is that closed and open syllable types. That's why we don't teach that vowel consonant E as early as this, a lot of curriculums and in the school. We teach closed and open. So this is some of the different vowel teams or the different syllable types and some examples of the words. And for the last syllable type, the consonant LE, it's my favorite. I call it the pickle, which I think is a funny word, pickle. And we just teach them that we're going to start at the E and we're going to count back 3. And then that's your consonant LE and that's your syllable. So syllable division is the next thing they have to know. And we teach these together, the syllable types and the syllable division, together, because that provides that structured literacy, that process where they're getting to work on words. And so for syllable division, we teach that a compound word, let's look for a compound word, those 2 smaller words that are making up a big word like dust mop. We teach about rabbit words, which is where we see our vowels and we count the consonants in between. And if there's 2 consonants, then we divide them out, right? And then we have this closed syllable, and this is a closed syllable. If we have only 1 consonant between the vowels, then that consonant usually goes to the 2nd syllable. We also teach the pickle rule that I talked about, and we always are teaching our prefixes, our affixes, that morphology, the morphemes, that smallest unit of meaning during our syllable division. So I thought it would be really fun if we have time, if I can show you how we do it, because I think knowing that this is what I have to teach is great for obviously, but when we're in the classroom, we really need to, how do I do it? And so that's a big thing that we do. If you're a private practitioner, if you're a parent at home, or if you're a classroom teacher, then how do I do this, Karen? So I love this platform. It's Wizmo, it's online, and we use it at the center. And it provides this multi-sensory structured literacy method that we can create any lesson that we want. It's highly customizable. It comes with over 1,000 workbooks that we could fiddle around with. Oh, this student needs this. We're going to teach the vowel team AI and AY. This student needs consonant blends with short vowel sounds. And so we can create, or they already have, workbooks ready for us to use. It's super easy to do word chains in this. So I do use this a lot to do word chains. And so I'm going to take you to Wizmo. If I can. Here we go. I think we're all together. This is my beauty. So Wizmo's in the process of updating and moving over from the old version to the new version. And so right now I don't have my new version completely how I like it. So for this webinar, I'm just showing you the old version, but it's the exact same. The workbooks are the same. And so let's talk about that syllable division, right? Where we talked about where one syllable ends and the next begins. And we talked about how we have our, how to teach that and the rules. So we can start with, let's see if we want to start with, no, let's do this one. Okay, so here's the activity. This is Wizmo, and it's got all of these different activities that I could use: timed reading, flashcards, letter cards, and like I said, the flashcards, they're all created for us. We can go into each one of these workbooks and we could edit out words that we don't want or put in words that we want and make it more customizable, but it gives us a good starting point. So for our flashcards, we could help the student and we could divide it up into the type of syllables, or we could ask them, here it is, can you divide the word into syllables? Oh, well, wait a minute. Karen taught me that I underline my vowels and I count my consonants between the vowels. Oh, there's only one consonant. So I'm going to move that consonant over. And now I have an open first syllable and a closed second syllable. Even. So that's one way that we use it. We also use the workbook tiles quite a bit because we're in that multisensory piece where we want the moving tiles and saying sounds. For example, we can do this. I'd love for you to read this word. So they find their vowels. They count their consonants. Oh, usually that one consonant goes to the second syllable. It's got a they have to mark whether it's open or closed. Human, right? And so it's just a wonderful, wonderful program. You can use it on your smart board. I've seen teachers use it on their smart board to go through different, like morning work, students coming in early, they can go up and do an activity on the smart board, and that whole instruction when they're introducing how to divide syllabication, then they can go ahead and they could do it using the smart board for that whole class, and then they can do small group as well. So let's see. It has everything. I love this. It's got our vowel teams. Ow as in out. Oops, that didn't go over. Ow as in out. Ow as in how. Now here's one thing I don't do. It's funny I picked on this, is that I'm not going to introduce ow for out with ow for how. It would be great if we never used OW. We only saw OW, ow, at the end of the word, but it's not true. Because we have owl, right? So it's funny I picked this one. Oh well. Another thing that we could do with the workbooks is that we could have the students be spelling the words. So can you spell the word, let's see, day, right? And so then they're gonna go d-a, day, d. A, I know that says A. And then we talk about, well, do English words end in I? Nope. Oh, no, it's not that one. It's the AY. There it is, day. So they can spell words, they can read words. There's work in here, there's sentences that we create our own sentences. So they're reading sentences. There isn't passages, but we have another program where they're reading that connected passage. Or they're reading it in a decodable text with us. So back to, oh, let me make sure you guys are with me. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Well, that's surprising. It's over. So that's it. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them. Or if you need me to go back in slides so you could do some QR code, taking QR code pictures, I'm happy to do that as well. Let's see, escape. Oh, no, it ended. Am I missing slides? Because it just ended. Done.
It was great. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.
I could listen to you all night. You're bubbly and fun and engaging.
Oh, thank you.
There was a question in the chat, but I think it might have gotten answered, and that was, is Wizmo? Am I saying it right? Wizmo?
Yes, Wizmo. Wizmo.
Wizmo,
Yes.
a paid or free site, and it sounds like there's some.
It's paid. It's a paid site, but it's very reasonable. It's $99 for an annual subscription, and that's for me and all my tutors. So it's pretty, it's very reasonable. And like I said, it can go up on the whiteboard as well.
Let's see, let me thumb back a minute. Let's see, when working with our young students on phonological awareness, they often get concepts confused. In a short block of time, what sequence do you recommend?
Oh, that's a great question. So I usually would recommend, well, let me make sure I'm answering the question right. So what you're asking is that would we start with let me do this first. Let me go back. I recommend the sequence that's in If I could figure out how to go back. I can't. Let me see. In that the phonemic awareness ladder. So let me go this way. I can go back. Look, I can go back. So when we're talking about the concepts that they can get kind of frustrated at and get confused, we're going to start with the large, so the syllables, which is the large and the rhyming, and then we're going to have them move up the ladder to the complexity. But remember, you're always going to give that, if they're really young, you're not going to give the past assessment to them. You don't need to, because they're going to need everything if they're pre-K, right? But we do give the past assessment to kindergartners, just so we know, because we need that for our records. But I would start with the less complex skills, and you could stop there and get them down. And then once they have that down, then you could move up to a more complex skill. So it's not quite to mastery, but you want to give them, you don't want them to be confused over the concepts. So really stick with one skill at a time. I hope that answered the question. If not, let me know. Maybe we could talk it out.
Okay. What about when our older students? What about kiddos that are in high school, for example? Where would you start them with who struggle with phonemic awareness?
So that's where we look at the assessment, the past assessment, and we're going to see what they need. A lot of time, and it really is so individualized. I'd love to give like this general answer, but it's really hard. So for example, I have my son who was diagnosed going into third grade, like third grade-ish, was diagnosed with dyslexia, and he's 23 now, 23, and he still, for the life of him, can't rhyme. He's remediated and he's reading, but he can't pull out a rhyme because of those underlying cognitive processes where that has that retrieval issue. So with the older students, I really want to make sure that I'm assessing them. And then I'm also letting them know, one of the things that I've really been successful with, or we found successful at Cupola, oh, can you hear my dog? Sorry. Is that they want to know what they're learning, why they need to learn this. If they don't want to be taught at, they want to be part of the process. And so for the older students, we're teaching them, we're showing them this slide, and we're talking about this slide, and we show them the results of their past. And this is why we're doing it. And then that kind of gets them on board. But it's so important with the older students not to waste their time. So that honesty, that transparency is important.
Right, I would agree. My son's, middle school, and definitely not wanting to have to do the baby-ish things, although he's very much still at that level. So the knowing the why behind it, the thinking about your thinking and why we're doing the
that metacognition is so, and Connie talked about that in the building blocks, but that understanding learning and what we're doing and how we learn is so important for success for our students.
Why the 6 syllable types are important, and what that learning that skill is going to create for for Carter or your kiddo.
Yeah. Right. And
that kind of ties in to the next question, which is I've recently heard that rhyming is not necessarily a skill that is needed to acquire reading skills. Your thoughts?
Well, I would say I haven't heard that yet, so I'd love to get that research on that so that I don't say something wrong in the future. But just from my own experience, yeah, because I have a 23-year-old who's in college and phenomenally successful with reading, and he can't rhyme. So it might be where that's some good information where we look at this, and it's not a mastery base, like they have to rhyme and I'm not going to go on. It's just something that we can touch base on. Right. But yes, send me that information because, I need to, it's hard as I'm not in the school district getting professional development. So I'm out there trying to find my own. So I'm always open to new information.
Right. Let's see. Those are the questions that are in the chat, but I feel like we could definitely pop off of mute and have people just interact with Karen while she's with us still and ask questions you might have, or you can still feel free to post them in the chat and I can go through them.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I love your QR codes. You're so fancy with all that.
My nephew taught me that.
That's so
That's not-
awesome.
It's worked out really well. I've had a lot of good feedback. And then it's that it's so easy now, right? So when you go to a restaurant, there's no menus anymore. They give you a QR code. So
Right. Right. Let's see. Do you use the tiles with high school students?
I do. So I do use the tiles with high school students. It's that multisensory piece. And it helps them, you know, with the pulling down, all of that things that we need. And it does get challenging. Another thing is the younger students might get bored of doing it and tired of doing it. And so it's okay to help them move the tiles or take turns like moving the tiles because they're still seeing it and they're hearing it as we move down the sounds. But with the high school students, I use the tiles. It's important for that OG part. There's something else that I can show you guys that I do a lot with the older students if we have time, and I can find it on my computer. If those two things are okay, then I
We
can
do
show
have
you.
time. We do have time.
Oh.
Yes, please do. I have an
Okay.
older student, so I like all the older student things. My son
Oh.
has a pipe cleaner with beads on it. You know, it's a little discreet, so it's not so, and he likes, it really does help him to pull the bead as he breaks the word apart.
Does he, oh, for the sound, so he pulls the bead aside and he has that
Yeah.
sound. Oh,
Pipe
I
cleaner,
like
and
that.
it'll have, yeah, beads on it, you know, 5 beads say, and he'll, you know, just pull a bead down with each sound. That,
Right. Oh,
and that
I like that.
multisensory is so hugely important for especially our severely dyslexic kiddos. Having
Right,
that
it's that
tangible something.
OG method is okay. So I tried to do, let me take you guys with me. I'm going to open up a tab. So I don't know if you're familiar with Kami, but I use Kami. It's all the time. It's part of every lesson. And Kami helps because the students can interact with it. And let's see, I tried basics. There we go. So I got this a long time ago from Ron Yoshimoto. He's really is a fellow, and he's over in Hawaii. But he was my first introduction at an International Dyslexia Association ages ago. At one of their big conferences, and he was so engaging and he was incredible. That his audience, there must have been 150 of us, and he brought the chocolate covered macadamia nuts for each one of us, and he was handing them out to us, and he also gave us all these resources. And so I still use one of the resources that he gave me because it takes that that's the multisensory piece, and now we're applying it to words on paper. And because right now during COVID, Kupalo is still online. Oh, I didn't know that would happen like this today. Let's do this one. That we need to transfer it over, like you were talking about with the older students, from the tiles to the paper. And they're much more engaged. That's because moving tiles around is babyish, like you were talking about. Oh, it's taking a little while, sorry. There we go. So for example, so we have these tulip words, right? And this is all from Ron Yoshimoto. And the tulip words are where we have that first open syllable and that closed syllable. And so what my students do is they get their marker. Let's see, they're going to use blue, right? So let's say we have Robinson, who's in middle school. He's not going to use pink. And we're teaching them like, first find our vowels. How many consonants do you have? Let's mark out our first syllable, and we're going to mark that as open, and then we're going to mark our second syllable as closed, and we're going to mark that as a closed syllable. So we have crocus. And so it's a huge CD with every syllable type worksheet, with every syllable type, with games, with crossword puzzles for the different syllable types. I think I wrote down, did I bring, we have this where we're talking about that vocabulary piece that comes with it. So we're gonna mark our vowels. Oh, human. What is a human? And then they're gonna read this. Humans need to, oh, Karen, I don't know that word. Well, what do we do when we don't know a word? We're gonna find our vowels, right? And we're gonna go protect. And so this resource I use a lot with the younger kids as well, but not with the tulip words, but as with the older students, they love this. This is something fun where they're gonna say our first syllable and our second syllable. So this is hoven. I've never heard of a hoven. And so then they gotta erase it because they're just trying to get away with something, right? And then they're like, then they have to read, oh, hotel, raven. So it's giving that piece. And I'm so glad somebody talked about wanting to see this, because this is also what we use in every session as well, is it's just not the tiles, and the writing is now we have to do on paper as well. So this is some of the activities, the tulip words, and then, you know, it has the rabbit words with the 2 consonants that we're pulling apart. It's got reptile words where I don't think I have reptile in here. Oh, here's reptile. So where a reptile word is where it's got a closed first syllable, and then it's got an open second syllable with that E. Feline. I did that wrong. wait, I did that wrong. I'm good. Boop. I just did it so you guys could see how Karen can make mistakes too. So donate. So it's got that open and then that vowel consonant E. Donate or feline. So this is a really good resource as well. And I highly encourage having them do this during each session as well. This is great morning work. Once they've learned it and they're successful at it, then they could practice independently. Then I would give them for morning work.
And Karen, what was that website? Is it a website again?
No, this isn't. This is like a 15-year-old CD. Sorry. But I am willing to share it. If I could figure out how to share it with you guys, I am willing to share it. He shared it with probably half the people at that conference. And I think the conference was in Orlando that time. I think he flew from Hawaii to Orlando. And so, yeah, I'm happy to share it. He shared it with me and I can pass it on as soon as I figure out how to do that.
Yeah, Karen, if you can get that to me, we can figure out a way to do it.
So Kim, are you inviting me to McCall? Because I'll go to McCall.
You can either come here or I'll be down there. I think I'm coming down tomorrow.
I actually, yeah, if I don't see you before the second week in November weekend, I'm going to McCall. So I could drop it off with you there if we don't meet up beforehand.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, if you work with a student via Zoom, you can put the words on a PowerPoint slide and then use the Zoom writing tools to mark the words. It works really well. That was a comment.
Oh, that's good advice. So wait, so we can create a PowerPoint for the lesson and then use the tool. Oh, yeah, that'll work. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's see, it is 7:12 and we can go for another 10 or 15. If anybody has any other questions for Karen.
Nope. Anybody need to see any more QR codes?
I think someone needs to make those in Teacher Pay Teachers so they're really cute.
That's a great idea. I love Teacher Pay Teachers.
Somebody make that for me. I just want to buy them.
Yeah,
I will think about that.
Yeah, I like to support Karen on the Florida Center for Reading, whatever it's called. I use some of their stuff with my she's a second grader now, used it when she was a first grader. She loves the activities. They really work on her phonemic awareness. They got more activities there than you know what to do with. Yes.
Exactly. Phonics, decode, everything. They have every activity there that has to do with that 5 Fab or the Super 6. So it's pretty a phenomenal website.
So Karen, if people have questions, one comment was that they might have questions once they put some of these fun things into practice. So if they have questions, is it okay for them to reach out to you directly?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And where's the
Jeff,
best place, your email or?
so yes, definitely on my email. And then if you don't hear back from me, and I'm not rude, I promise I'm not rude, but email me again and go, Karen, I didn't hear back from you. I'm not offended. I know it's on me. I'm working on being better at that, responding to emails. And so it's just
You can
that in my
email
work-
me too. I'll pin her down.
Oh, good.
I know where to find her.
I just wish I didn't have like hotels.com and Fandango in my work email. I mean, it's just gotten crazy. So yeah, so definitely reach out. I think so it's been a long struggle for my family. And I know everybody's here. So you either have a child or you have a student, and the struggle it's social, emotional as well. I mean, it is just this, it just turned our whole family upside down, and it just was heartbreaking. And even to this day, my oldest son, who is severely dyslexic, he's got dysgraphia, dyscalculia, he's got ADHD, like you wouldn't believe. And so he's remediated and he's reading, but those other pieces come into play. And so we're still going through it. And it's, I wish that we didn't have to fight this fight that we're fighting. And I think that Robin and Kim and Decoding Dyslexia Idaho has done such a phenomenal job to, raise awareness. And so we all need to kind of come together and work together. I've been, as a teacher, a SPED teacher with dyslexic students. I've been a parent with dyslexic students. I know the pain you're going through. And if there's anything I could do to help, I'd love to do that.
Hey,
Thank you,
Karen, can you
Karen.
put your email address in the chat?
Oh, yes. Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
I don't have it where I can find it.
I can do it. Look.
I do have to report some exciting news that'll be coming in Idaho, and that is that we have pushed hard enough that we are moving forward with creating a dyslexia state handbook.
Yay!
The State Board of Education has reached out to a small group of us that we're going to start coming together. So I'm really excited about that. I asked for that in 2018 and it's happening finally.
Oh, good work, Robin.
We have a really great team.